Hello, listeners. Hello, rollers. Welcome back to another episode of The Roll Report and Classing Up the Joint, where we ask... Damn it, I was doing it alphabetical and I forgot what letter I'm on. We ask, heavenly people, horrible questions. I don't know if I was on H, but I'm going to say that I was. Thank you for that. I needed it. I am your host. My name is Colin. I use they and he pronouns, and I, as always, am joined by a fantastic, wonderful guest I am so excited to speak with, who will give a little introduction to themselves.
Hello, my name is Kyle Tam. I go by she, they. I create tabletop games and I write a lot of essays and articles online where I analyze things you might like or you might not like. And occasionally I do short fiction, but mostly I get rejected from venues that publish short fiction. It is a tough market. You might have heard of me because you played my games Mariah, Hit the Road Jack, or weirdly the one where you play Rasputin. That one has a niche audience, but people seem to like it.
I love that. I'd forgotten about that one, and I think, honestly, I want to break my usual format. I'm not going to ask you my normal first question, and I really want to know how you thought of that, of like, let me just make a game where you play as Rasputin. Like, was it something about Rasputin as a character?
So have you watched the Kingsman movies?
Yes, I have.
Yes, okay. So there's the prequel movie, The King's Men. Mm-hmm. And Rasputin is one of the antagonists. Minor spoilers for the Kingsmen. Sure. He is one of the antagonists, and I think he's the one that featured the most. Mm-hmm. Like when you see all the marketing. I don't remember his actor. I'll have to look that up right now, but it's a fantastic rendition of Rasputin. And I remember watching that, and afterwards, it was rattling around in my brain, right? And then a couple of weeks after watching The Kingsman, I got COVID. And when you have COVID, like, you're very shuttered in, and you get a lot of time with your thoughts to just, like, think. And for some reason, I just kept thinking about Rasputin, and I kept thinking about the performance. So I just took those thoughts rattling around, and I was like, okay, but what if you were Rasputin? And I went down a Wikipedia rabbit hole and a research rabbit hole, and I don't know why, but my brain was like, this is a thing. This is a thing that you can make. Rhys Ifans, I'm probably butchering that. I'm so sorry. It's a Welsh name.
Honestly, I would have said it exactly the same.
Yeah,
I think that's close. I'm going to say that's close. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Comment in the comments if I really messed it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job because he does it a little funny, very exciting. There was so much layer and so much depth to his performance. And that's why there is now a game where you are Rasputin. If you're choose your own Rasputin, I think is what I called it.
I love that. Oh, and I love using that forced downtime of COVID to just let everything rattle around in your brain a little bit and come out with an incredible and very unusual and unique game that way. Thank you for indulging my total digression from usual format. So to return to that, usually we ask what your first RPG experience was. I happen to have the cheat code a little bit that, as far as I'm aware, it was Wraith the Oblivion.
Gosh.
We do deep dives in our research. Thank you, Hannah, for all of your wonderful hard work. So I'm curious what your experience was like with that game as you were kind of new into the RPG world. And I guess, if it's not too much of a spoiler giveaway, how long ago was that?
Right. So Wraith was definitely like my early play experience. Technically, I owned a copy of Dungeons and Dragons 4E. So my life and my design philosophies could have looked very different if I had nerdier friends in high school. I didn't. So I did not actually get to play D&D until college. But I think it was in my second year of college. I studied in the UK, so it's more like university. And I ended up playing 3 campaigns worth of Wraith the Oblivion, which is a wild statement to make to anybody who knows anything about Wraith the Oblivion, because it's a heavy game. It is a heavy, heavy game. I think at the time, I wouldn't have necessarily played or run it the way that we did, with very little caution for bleed. We technically had safety tools, but we weren't really good at using them. We went into some very dark places that in hindsight, I'm like, maybe we should have been given time for breathers, or we could have used the X card. I think it was a great play experience. It was an overwhelming first play experience. I think I learned so much when it comes to like the emotionality of games, of like bringing out emotion at the table between people. And at the same time, I learned I really don't like White Wolf's D10 mechanics.
Fair.
Oh my goodness. Because like you're in the middle of like a really tense, dramatic scene, and then you're like, I want to use my ghostly abilities. And it's like, all right, how many dice are you rolling? And I think my problem with it really was the way that it utilized dice kind of puts a stop to the action. Because you have some games where I think the mechanics and the narrative flow really well.
Sure.
The White Wolf games I found, it's not great, especially, how do I put this? You have fistfuls of dice that are being rolled onto the table, and you come into that problem where your combat is taking over an hour. And I think that's fine for something like Dungeons and Dragons, where combat is really considered to be a strong part of what you're doing. Like, it is the dungeon. You fight the dragon. Like, but this is Wraith. You are ghosts, and you are exploring, like, the afterlife and your regrets.
And my understanding of both that and similar games, like D&D is designed as a combat simulator first and foremost. That's always been its heritage and its DNA. And when you have something that is much more role play based, and where you're, like you're saying, like if it's something, especially like Wraith, where you're dealing with some really heavy topics and lots of intense and emotional role play, and you're like, wait, hold on, I got to grab, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 9 dice, and then I got to roll them, and then I got to do something else to figure out whether or not it succeeded. You can really just bring everything to a screeching halt.
Yeah. I mean, this was the original edition. This is like Old World of Darkness Wraith. So I think they streamlined things a little bit for the New World of Darkness and the V20 editions. Probably because of people like the ones in our group who were like, why this? But I did really enjoy Wraith. I think we had great groups. Could we have had better safety as a group? Oh yeah. Oh, we really, yeah. Like, things that I realized in hindsight, I was the only Asian person at our table. Our campaign ended up bringing us to the site of the Hiroshima bombing. In hindsight, I'm like,
Okay.
that's a weird place to bring the group with one Asian. Okay.
It's a choice that I'd say doesn't not make sense given the context of the game, but I do have questions about that. I feel like, well, let me have one Asian person at my table and then go to this deeply traumatic location.
Yeah, like in hindsight, years after, I'm like, I feel like I should have been checked with before this. But there was a choice that was being made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to think that is, the folly of youth and presumably obviously both you would have a better, I don't know if I want to say better relationship to the safety tools, but approach it very differently now. And hopefully whoever your DM was and the other players at the table also with the benefit of many more years of experience would approach that differently.
Yeah,
I'd like to think so.
I like to think so too. I think just at the time, it's like, I believe it's actually a canonical set piece in Wraith of the Oblivion, that you can go to places like the bomb site of Hiroshima or Auschwitz. If I remember right, the Auschwitz is quite the. There was a lot of talk about that one online. I think you have to do that with a lot of care and a lot of respect. I don't know if every table is ready to approach these kinds of things respectfully. I think my GM figured that out because the next campaigns were more personal and not like a World War II site, which I think was a better choice.
Yeah, let's bring you to where your character died, not where hundreds of thousands of people died, maybe. Let's scale down just a touch. Yeah, totally. I am curious what games you think do that sort of interruption of dice rolling well. And I say this because my most recent experience with a non-D&D thing was Outgunned, and there I was like, oh yeah, actually this really halts everything because you have to create your pool of D6s, you roll them, and then the way that system works, you're looking for matches rather than high-low. You're looking for how many of a kind, and then you can re-roll some of them, and you can re-roll some of them twice, and you're anytime you're doing these rolls, it can really just, one person's roll can take 5 minutes. And that's in the middle of roleplay or combat. So I'm curious what games you want to call out as handling that well or more smoothly integrated into the actual game and roleplay.
I have very funny answers for this one.
Okay, I love it. I'm here for it.
So the first one, and because I love running it, is paranoia. I've always found the comedy systems to have such nice, quick, and dirty roll systems. Paranoia and Goblin Quest. Whenever I want to run a game for people who don't want to be bogged down by dice, I just steal the dice system from Paranoia or Goblin Quest, and I port it into whatever setting. I love a roll under. I love a roll under with quick reference because you can look at it automatically.
Yeah.
I will say that it doesn't allow for more nuanced combat, right? Because sometimes you want to have something chunky where combat mechanics interact with each other. And that's not built for that. But I think for something like Wraith setting, where you're interacting with ghosts and emotionality, and you're not necessarily fighting a majority of the time.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense because you're not being bogged down by that interruption of dice. And I've used the Paranoia and the Goblin Quest things for fantasy settings, modern settings. Because when I have friends who are very new to role playing, and I ask them, how much time do you have to play the game? And they're like, 2 and a bit hours. And I'm like, okay, how much time do you have to learn the game? And they're like, can't we learn that in the 2 hours? I'm like, oh no. Oh, we do not have the time. We do not have the time for this.
Yeah, very rarely. I think that I have experienced that in bringing an occasional new system to convention settings. From like, nope, I have a 3-hour window. Here are your character sheets. This is the dice you roll, and we're off. And you're just going to have to kind of roll with it, guys. I don't know. Yeah. 2.5 hours is not a lot of time to try to learn a whole thing and then start rolling dice.
Especially if it's 2.5 hours and you're in your local coffee bean or cafe and there are people around you and it's like,
all sorts of good distractions.
Yeah. And people just looking at you like you've all gone a little nuts.
Yeah. I do find that part I care less and less about as I both get older and I'm like, well, you know what? You wish you were having as much fun as I am.
That's true. It is harder for people who are obviously newer to playing games because they're looking around. They're like, is this okay? Are we interrupting people? And I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. No, they wish we were us. That's the only thing that's happening here.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, I'm curious also what kind of games that draw you in as you've played more and as you have created a lot of your own. When you're choosing to play one, what is there particular systems or styles beyond what we've mentioned that are really like the games that draw you in and hook you and keep you coming back?
Right. So, I haven't been able to get tables to RPG with as often as I would like. Such is a way of being an adult in the adult world. Terrible.
Sure.
So the ones that I find that I bring to the table with a new group is something quick and dirty. Usually shenanigans comedy work best. So Fiasco, Goblin Quest, because it's really easy to hook people in. Especially because, this is a funny one, I have friends who tell me, I want to start playing D&D because I played Baldur's Gate. And I'm like, okay, wonderful. What do you want to get out of playing a game of D&D? And they're like, oh, like Baldur's Gate, where like meeting people and like fun stuff happens and we're having misadventures. I'm like, And then we have the aforementioned discussion about like time constraints.
Yeah.
And they're like, 2.5 hours. Like, you've never played RPGs and you want to do D&D in 2.5 hours. Are you sure about that?
We can try, but your experience may or may not match your Baldur's Gate experience.
Yeah, I think they don't think about the fact that Baldur's Gate, all of the dice happens like behind the scenes. You don't have to roll and then scour and look through all of your spells.
Yeah. Well, and there's 4 other people involved with, or however many people with their own opinions, their own skills. It's not you controlling these other party members and it's all on you and your one system, Yeah.
I think the other variety that I usually go for, I like solo games, solo journaling games. I always go back to the Magus. It is one of my favorite solo journaling games. Recently, I've had the pleasure of playing a play-by-post version of 7 Point Pack by J Dragon. And the way we're doing it so we don't all burn out and die is every week in the game, because it is a game that is played week on week, is a week in real life. And for those of you unfamiliar at home, 7 Point Pact is, first of all, it's extremely dense. There are 9 different work in progress handbooks / rule books. There's one for each of the 7 wizards of the pact, and then there's the core rule book, and then a spell book, a grimoire. You are each 7 wizards with 7 different domains who are responsible for ensuring like the safety and well-being of mankind. But you are also GMs for various aspects of the game. And it's very clear, like, you live in a patriarchy. This is wizards run under a patriarchy, and it's kind of toxic. And you're examining that through play. Like, how do you balance maintaining your domains while also being so insular and messed up because of the patriarchy? And it's been really wonderful, especially in play-by-post, where each of the 6 or 7 of us have different play styles, and each of us is examining patriarchy and the effect it has on men and women in different ways. And we've got the running joke where whenever a mechanism or a mechanic comes up that we find really good, everyone's just posting, "Good game. Thank you, J Dragon." Game is good. It's great.
I love that. That sounds so cool. And like, I really, it does also sound like a game that really lends itself to a play-by-post style. And I'm trying to imagine that, like, how you would sit everyone around a table and do that more in real time. And it sounds heinously complicated in that version.
Yeah. One of our wizards, Sam, bless him, has played the game IRL. And none of the rest of us have. So we were like, how does it play IRL, Sam? And he told us, like, so you do have to do more summarizing. Obviously, people still role play, but you have to truncate it a little bit. And the weeks go by quicker. Whereas because of play-by-post, we have the luxury of being able to do longer scenes, more description. We get to take our time, really, with the characters and with the world. And I think our play has really benefited from it.
Yeah. I am most familiar with a play-by-post from a Discord server that I joined that was like, an open world roleplay sort of thing. And I appreciated those exact things where I'm like, whoa, I can allow hours for a conversation between my character and another one. I can allow multiple days for things to happen. We ended up having to make a rule about combat. We're like, take your turn and then describe and write out your amazing flowery description of how cool it was. But like, it really lets people get into that and take the time to both develop their character, their relationship with other characters, and like, all the cool things they want to say about the stuff they're doing in the game. The sort of spaciousness that play-by-post can allow in that way, I think I really appreciate. And certainly for a game like you're describing, that I think I would really appreciate having the time and spaciousness to contemplate the moves I want to make in the game and build those longer scenes and let them really fully play out. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So cool. I want to say I'm so happy for you that you found like a good group of 7 people to play such an interesting and complex game over time with. I feel like I'm really curious how that's going to end up.
Oh, me too.
I want like little campaign updates by email.
Yeah. We plan to play it for a year so that we can take our time with it. We will see how it goes. I think it's been really great. And there's so much toxic patriarchy in it, in good and bad ways.
Sure.
Like, we have a great contrast. We have our oldest wizard is over 140. He should be dead yet. He is not. he's clinging onto humanity by like the barest thread. And then conversely, I'm playing a 10-year-old who really shouldn't have been given this job. He is very small. He should be in school, but instead he has the fate of humanity on his shoulders.
Like I honestly, that feels like what happens when you're 10 in some ways, I think. Well, maybe more like 13, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it, I mean, now I want to like know a little more about your character. Is the title or is the post hereditary? Canonically, did your character's like parent die and then you now have this responsibility?
So the way that we formulated it, and the way the game works is that you have your wizard, and wizards have apprentices, not apprentices. Jade Dragon has kindly removed the A in front of apprentice, but so in the specific rule books of each of the different wizards, you have a couple of options of publicly how was your master perceived, the person who trained you as your apprentice, and privately what was the actual relationship. And that's how you kind of build out the character to begin with. And the way that mine worked is that the 10-year-old boy had a master, but the master actually died before they could teach him. So he has kind of only his memory, the memory of the master, and like the master's spirit has been teaching him through the flames. Like literally, because the domain of the character, the Hierophant, is like to be keeper of this holy sacred flame. And it's been great because that's also interacted with the domains and the elements of other characters. We've been building out their different relationships. Two of the characters coincidentally have married two people from the same clan, which means they married two women with the same surname. And one of the great things in 7 Point Pact is that you are playing the wizard, but you are also in charge of an aspect of the world. So that's what you GM. Mine is I am in charge of people's companions, like the NPCs who are their friends or their lovers or their confidants, which means I am in charge of everybody's wife. And I saw, so it's great. So I saw that and I was like, gang, did you guys know that you were married to two women from the same clan? Can I make them sisters? And they were like, yes, do that. I was like, wonderful. You are in-laws. You are in-laws by connection. And your wives hate each other. And they're like, oh,
okay. Perfect. Yeah. That's great. Oh,
yeah.
Man. Yeah. I would, in the most polite and non-insistent way, I think a like little weekly campaign update of what is happening in that world sounds utterly fascinating and enjoyable, to me at least. So I'm curious if the games that you play end up influencing or affecting your writing, both the kind of in game design and the other writing that you put out into the world. Like are things or concepts from 7 Point Sages going to Pact 7 Pact Sage?
Yeah, 7 Point Pact.
7 Point Pact. There we go. I'll get it right on the fourth time. Like I'm curious if some of what you are finding in the course of playing that game or its mechanics or rules are making their way into your own creative output.
I think so, definitely, because when I play games or when I watch movies or listen to music, I tend to ruminate on these influences and let that come through in my design. I think with 7 Point Pact, it's brought up for me that really interesting idea of it's not a GM-less game. It is the opposite. It is a GM full game. Everybody is in charge of something. It's really collaborative storytelling at its peak, and there's a lot of trust in that each player is allowed to essentially govern one aspect of the world. And I think there's something there that would be really interesting to examine within other contexts and other settings and other games. Like already I'm thinking of Fae. You think of the Fae and the Fae domains.
Yeah.
And like, what can we do with that? Because the Fae are creatures, beings that kind of sculpt their own worlds. And you have that question of like, how do they interact with each other within and outside of their domains? What are the rules, if any, that govern them? Because these wizards are held together by a shared sense of responsibility. But do the fairies have that?
I mean, I think by most myths, no, canonically.
Yeah. So
but I'd be really curious about it. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's things like that. I've done a thing actually this year where I've created, I guess this is kind of a progress / inspiration journal. So I have a notebook, and every day I specifically log what have I done for writing, what good things or bad things have happened to me writing wise, and what media have I engaged with or started today. Like I took down a note, started 7-Point Pact today. If I watch a movie, I'm like, watch this movie today. Started this book today. Went to a concert. And it's something I like to flip through and reflect on, besides also updating it. Because I can, remind myself of the things I've seen, if they're not top of my head. And I can be like, oh, that thing I watched was really fantastic. Is there something that I can use? Is there something that I particularly liked? And also in terms of the writing progress, good and bad, last year, I think I was really struggling with this idea of I'm not doing enough when it comes to what I'm writing, what I'm creating, which I think is a question that is going to plague a lot of creatives. Like, you ask yourself, like, did I do enough? Am I working hard enough? Have I put in the effort to be where I want to be? And I kind of started this practice with the inspirations and progress to remind myself that I am putting in both active and passive work. Active work being actually writing or communicating with my collaborators, or doing the hellish thing of marketing myself on social media.
Always the worst. Yeah.
And even if I'm not actively working, I am always taking something in that I can, one, enjoy, but two, also be moved by and learn from.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting to see where the progression has gone. Like, things that I watched or listened to at the start of the year, I see reflected in the stuff that I wrote and produced in the middle or the end of the year.
As it takes a little bit of time to sort of percolate in,
Yes.
and then that's really interesting. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I love this. It also, to me, you didn't specifically say this, but it sounds like there's some accountability as well, trying to make sure internally, am I doing the things that I'm enjoying and pushing myself forward? And it also, I think, I'm going to compare it to the thought, am I successful? Whatever successful means. In addition to kind of like, am I working hard enough? And I would argue from, I think, many people's perspective, what you have been able to do is an unqualified version of like success within our industry, within writing, within gaming, and creating of those. So I I'm tempted to be like, do you feel successful? And I feel like that's also a very rude question to ask. So, I think maybe the nicer version of it, the more polite version, like, do you struggle with that feeling as well of, am I successful, whatever successful means for a given value of it? Or have you gotten to a place where you're like, no, I keep this journal for accountability and moving forward. I know that I'm doing the thing that I love, and I'm getting to make that most of my job.
I think it would be dishonest for me to say that I don't struggle with this feeling.
Sure.
I think it would be a disservice to myself to pretend that I don't have this struggle, especially when I look at some of my contemporaries in the field, designers who are younger than me, designers who have been doing this for as long as or less time than me, but who might look quote unquote more successful by whatever metric that is. I specifically call this out, and not in a bad way, call out the wonderful Pantheon games. Fantastic. You should go to the website right now and get Midnight Muscadines, because Midnight Muscadines is a fantastic game. But recently released a blog post saying, hey, I've been in this industry 5 years now. In the interest of transparency, this is how I've been doing this year. This is the money that I have made doing this year alone. And I'm not going to put the exact numbers because that's one, spoiling. Two, you should read the blog post for yourself. It's actually very insightful.
Yeah.
But as I was reading that like run through of the year, I've also been writing for the same amount of time, and I was kind of reading it, and I was like, "Wow, wow." That was my first thought. That wow. The second was I had to remind myself my circumstance is a little different. I don't do this full time. I don't kickstart or self-fund. Mostly, I have done ish funding, but I run into this issue, and shout out to my Southeast Asia homies. A lot of us struggle with the same issue where we can't put our games on the major funders like Kickstarter or BackerKit without a partner or without somebody who lives in a country that is not in Southeast Asia. There are a few exceptions. I think Aaron Lim, who did Spectres of Brocken, and he had the double header campaign, What Do You Want to Eat and Ithaca Second Edition, is one of the few people I know in Southeast Asia who's kind of been heading these campaigns as himself, right? Because usually if you have a creator from Southeast Asia, more often than not, they're either working as part of a collective that has a partner in a country that is supported by Kickstarter or BackerKit, or else they are being published by a publisher, which is what's kind of been happening in my case, that is based in a country that is compatible with BackerKit or Kickstarter. And it is kind of a frustrating barrier in terms of one's reach.
Yeah.
So, but, I don't, it's annoying from a logistical point of view.
Sure.
But I've also kind of reckoned with myself, it's not fair to track my progress based on other people's, because we all have different journeys, and I'm proud of what I've done.
It's hard not to, for sure. I think that is part of human nature is comparison to similar people. So, and if I can, just asking out of complete ignorance, what it sounds like is BackerKit and Kickstarter and some things, like their servers don't operate in Southeast Asia, or they are you are locationally locked out of those as a solo creator.
So it's specifically Stripe. Stripe,
Right. Okay. It's the payment
yeah,
processing.
it's literally the
Those
payment
motherfuckers.
processor. Oh boy, payment processors are not our friends, but
No.
that's
No.
literally. I think that's literally it more than anything. It's the payment
Yeah.
processor.
Yeah. Well, and it's the thing that I find continually frustrating about that specific angle, and on the show on one of our infodumps, we talked about the deplatforming of games by queer and trans creators after some moms group from Australia like complained a little bit, and it's we live under capitalism and that sucks, but these companies are just willfully ignoring the huge markets that they could have. In this case, Stripe, they could have so many people in countries that they currently don't serve that want to use their platform to make a game and raise funds and do any kind of things like that. And, in the case of the delisting debacle, I'm like, look, there's so many queer gamers that want these games. What are you doing, you idiots? So I guess I don't even know where I was going that beyond. I'm sorry that is happening. That super sucks.
Yeah.
Like, what a load of horse shit, honestly.
Absolutely. And in my head, I'm also like, this doesn't even make economic sense under
Yeah.
the principles of capitalism. This is just a control thing. You guys
Yeah.
are being stupid.
Yeah. God, that makes me so frustrated. I'm going to make angry gestures for a minute because I can't do anything else. Wow. Well, and I also don't know what to do but to like wrench us back to like a more questions and things. I don't want to keep harping on like what does success mean, because I think that I think we've hit that, but I do, if you will accept validation from a new friend, I think you're doing great, and I think you are doing successful, interesting things. So, for whatever that's worth, and on that, sorry,
No, I was just going to say thank you. I do appreciate it. And it's always nice as an artiste, as someone who makes things, to be validated by other people, because we are creatures that love validation.
Yes, it's true. And on that note, like, you've created and written for a wide variety and number of games. I'm curious if if you have favorites, if you look back on the ones that you've created in the last 5 years, however many years, and go like, that one, I love that one. That is my favorite child. Don't tell the others.
Of my games or the games that I've worked on?
Either or both. I guess those are kind of different questions. Ones that you have created that are your own baby putting out in the world versus ones that you have contributed to. But yeah, either, both.
Okay, so I think obviously in terms of what I've created, Mariah is probably the standout. I think that's the one that people probably know me for the best. Mariah, I think, was a very emotional game for me to write and bring to the table. It is something that was kind of a product of the state of the world. You'll be happy to know that, shameless plug, I'm trying to get that to print with a crowdfunding campaign tentatively slated for July with Plus One XP. We're a great publisher. Outside of Mariah, I think of the stuff that I've kind of made, I really liked Prima Donna. Prima Donna is a game that has, without my knowledge, I was told after the fact, but has been advertised by the folks at Plus One XP as a game that's really about burnout. And I was like, yeah, kind of is. And it's specifically one of those obnoxious category of games that interacts with what does it mean to be an artist? What does it mean to have that creative fatigue? What is it through the metaphorical lens? But it's a game I am particularly proud of. I made a new friend recently, a good friend who's in a different creative field. He's a musician. And we were talking about, art and artistic art intention and the difference between, art as something you kind of create for you versus art as your daily job as it is for him. And I sent him the game because he was like, oh, what do you do? Like, what do you write? Can I read it? Because we are artists. We're curious creatures. Yeah. We want to see what other people make. And afterwards, he was like, thank you so much for this. I know this. This feels relevant. I know this feeling. And I was like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. He's like, I know this beast. And I'm like, I know you do. I know you do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And as a side note / brief interruption, listeners, that all of these games will be linked through Kyle's website, which will be in the show notes. Go check them out. I'm looking at them as we're talking, and I want to play all of them.
Yeah. In terms of the stuff that I've written that not for me, for other people, I think I'm probably proudest of the work that I did on Killing Time with Moss Powers. Moss is great, by the way. You should absolutely buy their games. In particular, Hell Whalers, which I didn't work on, is excellent if you've ever read Moby Dick and if you haven't read Moby Dick. But that's a side note. So the game that I worked on is Killing Time, which is you have a foolish hero who wants to kill Father Time, which is a crazy, crazy concept. And I had the distinct pleasure of writing for the section that happens after the hero stabs Father Time, as the hero and Father Time are kind of dying together. And you have this wonderful section of the game where as they're dying, they kind of have to interrogate and understand each other because they haven't had that space to do so up until now. And what I wrote was almost mini scenarios or prompts, asking them to talk to each other about the nature of mortality, understanding who they actually are, what has brought them to this point. Was there anything that they could have done differently? Was there anything that they wouldn't have changed? Do they have any regrets? Do they have any fond memories? And I truly enjoyed working on this because who doesn't like to write a good prompt? Good prompts are so satisfying. Yeah. But I also love the idea of creating that space to examine regret. Because the way the mechanical flow is so interesting that it's only in this last segment of the game where they're like, by the way, why have we done this? Why have I done this to you? Why are we doing this to each other? Because it's too late now. We can't go back. Maybe we should have tried to understand each other in the first place. And I love that. I love being able to do that.
Same. I love that as an ending, and I love it also kind of in contrast to any number of tropes about knowing your enemy better than you know yourself, which we see in fiction, in literature, in movies all the time, where the slayer has to know and learn and understand what it is that they're hunting before killing them, and then usually experience some sort of regret versus, no, ignore everything, focus on the goal, kill the target, and then have this deep and emotional and presumably very regretful conversation as you're both bleeding out on the floor or however it actually happens. I think that is such an interesting approach to that exact problem or trope, if you will. Yeah, that sounds really cool and like a very satisfying. I would imagine it was very satisfying to write about, both to give people these prompts and maybe also as like personal reflection on some of those themes.
Yeah, and I think it's also like it was nice because when we make stuff, we draw on what we're influenced by, but also our life experiences. So as I was writing that, I kind of put myself into the mind of what would I want to discuss with people who I've been wronged by and who have wronged me, now that some time has passed and it's too late for us to reconcile. Like, what would I want to say to them? What would I want them to say to me if it's been 5 years or 10 years and we're like, what happened? What happened between us? Why did things turn out like this? Because things have been different? I don't know. So it was a good place for me to reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious if organizing thoughts. I'm reflecting on the fact that deep conversations like that between two people in the real world can frequently be interruptions. In full transparency, I've experienced similar things having a very terrible breakup last year. I was like, wow, we really kind of talked past each other and through each other and we're not able to be uninterrupted. If either as you were creating this or if you've been able to play it or seen it played, how to handle that conversation. You're like, the part of the point, I think, would be for both of these characters to really listen to each other and allow uninterrupted time to express those regrets.
So I think Moss has done a very clever thing here where it's not two equal characters, so to speak. In everything, Father Time is technically the GM. They are in charge of ensuring the gameplay mechanics are at work. So when it comes to that last section, there is kind of an onus on Father Time to responsibly manage the time between the one player, your foolish hero, and themselves. I think there's also certain mechanics that were introduced, which I won't spoil too much, but basically, you can allocate tokens in certain ways to ensure that you or the other person gets the opportunity to speak. But at the same time, I think that that talking at dual purposes, the flow of interruptions, depending on the table, depending who you talk to in the setting, could also be considered part of play, because that's something that, as you mentioned, is very normal and very human. Because even if you have these kind of talks of regret, sometimes you don't always get to have a peaceful reflection. Sometimes it's a very angry reflection. Sometimes you don't want to talk to people who want to have this kind of almost closure. And that's a valid choice. You are allowed to say, and I will say this for everyone listening at home, you don't always owe people closure. Some people want closure. You don't have to give it to them if you're done with the situation. If there are some horrible, horrible people who have been in your life before and they're like, you owe me this time, you owe me these answers. No, you don't.
No, you don't. Not at all. And I mean, I would conversely argue, you listeners, me, individual, we owe it to ourselves to not go back to some of those horrible things just because someone wants closure, I greatly diminished my social media use and replaced it with Reddit. I don't know that that's a good thing, but I think a lot about the things that I learned from the number of terrible families and terrible communication dynamics featured in Am I the Asshole and things, and how often...
I was going to say, oh my God.
And how often people are like, should I let this person that I have a terrible relationship with back into my life, or should I have this conversation with them? And what I think is great is how many people usually like, no, don't set yourself back on fire. You got out of that terrible situation and you're doing better. Why would you do that again? You don't owe this person anything at all. Protect yourself. Yeah, and so I agree. I think it's there is often a sense of obligation, which is maybe just human in nature, or maybe just sort of a societal thing that we're like, well, no, I should hear this person out. And I always want to like give people a little shake and be like, no, you don't have to. If you were treated terribly, you can just walk away and never see that person again, and it's fine. We'll all survive.
But yeah, kind of bringing it back to the game a little bit. I think that's what I love about games. One of the many things I love about games, but the fact that like we can examine this kind of feeling, the kind of sentiment in a place that we make safe for each other. Like we can explore that feeling of regret and what if in the space where you are a player and the GM, and you can trust each other. And if it becomes uncomfortable, you can tap out and say, hey, we're heading into a space that I don't think I'm comfortable role-playing through.
Yeah.
What can we do about that? Or say, like, I don't think I can do this right now. Because you are not confronting an actual relic of your past. You are in a place of play where you can explore a difficult feeling. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's among other things, it's great practice for if you have to do that. Hello, rollers! It is I, your host, debatably friendly DM, and other things, Colin, here to welcome you to the mid-roll. Thank you for listening, and we hope you are enjoying this episode so far. This is your periodic interruption, brief as it may be, to remind you that The Roll Report is on many social media platforms. You can find us around the interwebs at The Roll Report Cast, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Blue Sky. We don't do the other thing. We don't talk about the artist formerly known as Twitter. But you can follow us there for news and announcements, special clips from the interviews you may not have seen, and learn about who we're going to interview next. Because if you are very intrigued and curious about upcoming interview guests, if you head on over to patreon.com/The Roll Report and give us a single $1, you can submit questions for our interviews, and only you and only our other supporters on Patreon will hear the answers. That's right, special Patreon-only Q&As with interview guests if you support us there and if you send us questions. Thank you so much for listening. Back to the show. Enjoy! Is that idea, the kind of like creating a safe space to experience some heavier emotions and things, is that, I don't want to say is that like the common theme across a lot of the games that you have created personally, but are there common themes that you like exploring within the games that you're crafting, either related to that or not?
So I think that's definitely one of the things I explore a lot in my games and the things I write. I was told that somebody, I think at PAX, said that my work seems like I make banger saddies. And I'm like, that's great. That's wonderful. But I think it speaks a lot, actually, going back to Wraith the Oblivion and that experience I had where we were experiencing these like extremely deep, intense emotions without necessarily being good about our safety and our care for each other. I know I experienced significant emotional bleed at that time, like to kind of a ridiculous degree. I was imprinting on characters in ways that really weren't healthy for a college-age person.
Sure.
I think it happens to a lot of us when we're playing characters in college. We have unhealthy lack of separation. We get extremely attached. I think bad things happened to my character, and I started crying. I distinctly remember that. And in like now, I'm like, the crying was not good crying. The crying was bad crying, because there's a difference between good and bad crying in a place of play. So I think in what I've created, I very consciously kind of make that space where you're experiencing very intense emotion, but I try to mechanically work in breaks and natural pauses, so you were doing it in a way that isn't overwhelming. So that's one of the things I like to explore a lot. And the other is I tend to go back on touchstones of faith. And when it comes to, I am Roman Catholic. I guess my relationship with the church is weird. I think a lot of Roman Catholics, your relationship with the actual physical church is very, very weird.
Yeah.
So I think that separation between one's faith in a higher power versus the actual physical tenets of an institution are things that I've explored when it comes to my games. Like Mariah is very much built as a game about faith and sacrifice in the most literal sense. Welcome to St. Julian's was a game that I deliberately set in. It was a supplement that was deliberately set in a Catholic school, and kind of exploring the horrors of that in a very Filipino oriented way. Shout out to the students of Saint Scholastica, which, if I recall correctly, is literally built over a graveyard. Wonderful school.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool choice. Really cool choice.
I know. I think also, it's wonderful, because my mom went to school there, and I asked her, like, is it haunted? And she's like, oh yeah, we saw a ghost. I have literally seen a ghost there. And I was like, oh, wonderful.
Wild. If I may,
Yeah.
what may be one of, if not the only political question I'm going to ask, if I may, what do you think about this new pope?
Oh, you know, it was so interesting because obviously, as a Roman Catholic, surrounded by Roman Catholics, this is a country that's like 85% Roman Catholic, which is a ridiculous statistic. I think he's an interesting pope. I'm so curious. Like, he's definitely a typical pope. It feels like he was really somebody Francis kind of teed up to hopefully continue his legacy of I can't really say a more liberal church, because there's some things that Pope Francis and I did not see eye to eye on, but definitely it's leaning that way, where it was definitely a pushback against a more conservative papacy. And I think that is a good thing. I'm not going to pretend that I think Pope Francis and our current Pope Leo are like fountains of true virtue, because there are some things where I'm like, can you please endorse, if not abortion, then birth control? I'm begging
Just
you.
at least give us some reproductive rights and freedom, guys. Come on.
Yeah, please. But I think it's a nice step in a better direction, I think, for the Roman Catholic Church. We were a bit disappointed because I say we, as in the entire nation of the Philippines, we.
Sure.
Because we had a horse in the running. We had a cardinal hopeful. Did I personally think he was going to win? I don't know if they're ready for a pope that doesn't have white skin. I'ma be real.
I would like to think that at least the Catholic Church is heading in that direction.
Not yet.
I would like to believe that, but
Me too.
Well, I mean, I think to stay on this for a moment, like to what we were talking about with credit card processors and payment processors, it's a similar. My not well-informed understanding is, I think at this point, the majority of Catholics worldwide are not white.
Yeah,
I think.
they aren't.
And so
we
you'd
don't
think
get
it
a
would be a
vote.
good, right? But it would be a really good, it would be a smart political move and a smart recognition of, of the global majority to have a not white pope. But you're right. I don't know if the Catholic Church is necessarily ready for that, although I would argue they should be.
I think they should be. I think the problem was Conclave, the movie, came out and it made us hopeful. Because you have Ray Fiennes and you have Stanley Tucci and you have the one cardinal who vapes. I don't remember the actor, but he was amazing. And we watched that movie and it's a wonderful movie. And my sister, she looked up the original book and she's like, did you know spoilers for the movie Conclave. I cannot stress this enough. Spoilers, plug your ears. Did you know that the Mexican cardinal who becomes pope is a Filipino in the book? He's Filipino.
Okay, that's just rude to me. That is a change that seems totally fucking unnecessary and rude.
I know. I think we were probably like, maybe they couldn't they were worried about finding a Filipino actor who could do the role, but we were also kind of like, we got a lot of great Filipino actors who have played many priests. Like, if you are a male Filipino actor of a certain age, you have played a priest at some point in your life. That's non-negotiable.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, like, it's with any Hollywood thing like that, it's lazy. It is outright lazy, or to some weird sort of like corner cutting, cost saving thing. We're like, no, you 100% could have found a Filipino actor, kept the character as it is in the book Filipino, and you just made the choice not to.
Yeah, it was a choice where we were like kind of a lot of question mark, but it also made us hopeful for the actual conclave, because we're like, you know what, it happened there. It could happen in real life.
Yeah, totally.
It didn't, but we dream.
You know what? We dream and we create and we try to make the world a little better, I think, most of us, anyway. Well, thank you for indulging me on that little political side tangent.
You're welcome.
I'm back to kind of game writing and things. I'm curious if there are particular themes, as someone who has written both fiction, interactive fiction, and games, and I kind of think those are slightly separate things. If there are topics or themes that games or more interactive fiction are uniquely suited to, like really can hone in on, and it's better than kind of writing a piece of fiction about it.
I think that's a great question, and probably the top of mind. But there are going to be a lot of tabletop gamers and designers will disagree with me, and I want you to disagree with me. Let's disagree. Is romance? I think it's really, really hard, not impossible, but very difficult to mechanically portray romantic relationships in a tabletop game. You can certainly role play it out, but I think it becomes a little jarring if you're introducing mechanical elements. I know there are some games that have done this quite well. Pasión de las Pasiones and Firebrands being the ones that come top of mind. But for the most part, when we talk about tabletop role-playing games and romance, it tends to be something that's almost abstracted at the table. It becomes act interacting between two players rather than role-playing using the mechanics of the game, but in an interactive fiction sense, in like your video game sense.
Sure. Well, like if we, again, to go back to Baldur's Gate or any of the things similarly, it's navigating the dialogue trees. At a certain point, probably there's a dice to roll, and I might argue in that case it's because a computer is controlling that thing versus another human being. And how do we feel about like, a human being rolling a charisma check, rolling a persuasion or something, and someone else needing to be like, well, I need to roll against that or my character loses agency.
Yeah. I think also when you're in interactive fiction, it's, and this is horrible to say, because you don't need to do as many safety checks, because you have opted in as you, the sole player, and the computer has kind of been auto-opted into agreeing to play out this romance with you. And the game designer has specifically crafted this character with romancing in mind. It's easier from a mechanical standpoint for romance and to be explored in a game. That being said, I find these to be two very different experiences because it's obviously much more naturalistic and real in a tabletop setting when you have partners that you can play off with and you can kind of organically develop what the relationships look like. Like kind of bring it back to 7 Point Pact. Because I am playing wives, that's a part of what I'm doing. I'm playing wives. But that meant that I was able to interact with my fellow players who are playing their husbands and kind of explore with them what is the nature of this relationship that you have before we come into the scene. And you can't do that with the computer. That's already been pre-written. The author kind of has to do their best guess of like what are my players going to resonate with, which is a disadvantage of any interactive fiction or video game, is that you can't see who's on the other side. You can get feedback, but you don't get it live. The connection is different.
Yeah. I am curious if you are familiar with Monster Hearts, and I say this because I recently picked it up at this amazing punk game and music store in Portland, and it's a game where like a whole mechanic is about being messy teenagers hooking up, and every playbook, it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game. Every playbook has a sex move that activates when you sleep with someone, especially if it's another PC.
Ooh, I haven't. I know I should. It's one of those games where I'm like, I should get it. I mean,
just if this is like just if like the romance is a thing that you're interested in, like I would be really curious if or when you acquire it to know your thoughts about that, because I will say that for myself, I was like, this is really interesting. This just for me changes who I would want to play the game with. When a core mechanic is the sex move, I want my table to already be pretty familiar with each other, to have some really rock solid safety and consent talks first, and then go into a game like that.
I think it really depends on your sensibilities. Because you also need to make sure you don't necessarily have to. Because in my head, I was going to say, you need to make sure that your table is mature and respectful. And then I was going to come out of my mouth, and I was like, no. No matter how mature and respectful the table, at least one person's going to be like, I do the sex move. And then everyone's going to laugh. It's just a fact of life. That's just going to happen.
I mean, and I often, as a clown, I think moments of levity are really important to break up some of the heaviness that can happen in a more serious game, or, as a performer in a more serious show. I'm in a show right now that is about like familial violence and like bad Irish Catholic families, and I'm up here I have 7 outfits in the show, and I just offer pithy commentary and like break the mood of the heaviest scenes. And so I find that very important. And yeah, sure, someone at that table is going to be like, I'm going to use the sex move. You're like, okay, great. Let's all have a nice laugh, and then we can get back into the horrors of being like teenage supernatural beings hooking up with each other. Yeah. I think on a related note, are there things that you find more difficult about any of the types of writing that you're doing? Like more difficult in what is more difficult to write fiction in this aspect versus writing and designing for a game or for more interactive fiction?
If you look at my track record for short fiction, I definitely find it harder. But I think that's because the space that the storytelling you have with a tabletop game or with any kind of game is a collaborative effort. It's you and it's the player kind of making the story together. Even if it's interactive fiction, technically speaking, there's a certain freedom of choice. You are allowed to explore a lot of different options. You're allowed to introduce what ifs and paths. And that's even more so for tabletop RPG, because the nature of the play is imagination with guardrails, with guidelines. And that gives you so much space to allow a story or narrative to spiral in many different ways. With any kind of fiction writing, whether it's a novel or a short story, you have that constraint of this is a very specific plot that you are telling with a very specific set of characters who must be clearly defined. Even if there's someone who is like nebulous and mysterious, they must still have some definition. There's a specific inflexibility due to the format. Whereas even in interactive fiction, you can still kind of have people branch out differently depending on the choices that you make and the ways that you interact with them. And short fiction, I think I've always struggled a little bit with almost the rigidity of it, because you have to stick to the prescribed plot. You have to stick to the prescribed characters. You can add new people if you want. This is your story. You can have plot changes, but there's a set beginning to end of it that I think I struggle with. Whereas I've always found, like, at a table, I like to play off the things that other people do. As a player and as a game runner, I always do best when I can have that feedback and adjust things around it on the fly. And you can do that as an author, obviously, with your beta readers, with your editor. But I do tend to struggle with that finality of it in the writing process.
Yeah, I think the real-time feedback of being at a table with people and bouncing off of them as a player or as a GM, I think that's a very different thing than writing something, having people read it, and going back to edit it. I think I'm curious also in both your fiction and in some of the game design if there's kind of the authorial trope of, oh, my characters get away from me. And I don't know exactly. I thought it was this, and then I started writing the character, and I realized their voice was totally different, and it became this other thing. And so I'm curious if that's something that you found in your fiction and or in the game design and the interactive fiction as well.
Yeah, I think when it comes to writing fiction, my characters, they do run away from me a little bit. It tends to happen. I'm like, I have to go back and be like, you are not the same you as you were 20 pages ago. What did you do? What has happened in the meantime? Whereas when it's game writing, I haven't necessarily made the characters yet, or if I do, I've just sketched them out for someone else to inhabit. And I think that's the thing. You can let someone else run away with that character. You kind of created a scaffolding, bullet points, things for them to further flesh out fully and make into their own. And I think that's what's really special about game writing and game design, is that the story begins with you, but it doesn't end with you. It's going to keep continuing for other people. People you might not ever meet or ever talk to. And I think for me, that's always what's made it so special. Whereas I come to the fiction, and the story begins and ends with you, the author. It might spiral out into fan fiction, or people might be interpreted in different ways, but the baseline of the fiction begins and ends with the you who made it. So it's a very different design headspace.
Yeah, totally. I think of it a little bit. I designed NPCs for some supplement books and things, and like when I'm writing that, it's like I am providing my reader, the eventual player or GM, I'm providing them the skeleton, and they have to fill in the muscle tissue and the next layers up to the skin, like how they're going to present to their players. Versus, I think in fiction, you're giving readers the external layer. You're giving them, they see the fully realized body, the skin, and you, the author, might know the skeleton, might know, the choices they've made in their backstory that lead them to act how they are in the actual written part of the fiction. And the audience readers might not ever see that. But I think as an author, it's important to know, this character has this deeply traumatic event in their past, and that's why they hate bananas with a deep and abiding passion. And it never needs to make sense to my reader, and they may never know, but I know that a banana caused an accident that killed their puppy when they were 7, and they hate bananas. And it's the kind of thing that's not important for a fiction reader to know that, as much as like, God, I wonder why that character hates bananas. I don't know. I'm not sure if that made sense or if that resonates at all with you, but it's a little bit how I've thought about it.
No, I think I agree. But I also get frustrated at characters that are also keeping secrets from the author, because it's like, can you not do this? Can you be perfectly logical and reasonable with me? Why is your dialogue so different from how I made you?
Yeah, totally. What are you working on right now? What things do we most want our listeners to go and check out if they will, follow up like I know all of our listeners do?
Good question. So I think I mentioned it in July. Fingers crossed, we should be crowdfunding the print version of Mariah. So that's been a project a few years coming. Wizard Punks 2 just came out. I have a game in it, and it is also a lot of wonderful short fiction from some of your favorite game designers, including Chris Bissett, creator of The Wretched. Who they have not made a game. They have written fiction, but it's still great. You should still read that anyways. In terms of what I am actively working on, besides commission work I can't talk about yet, I think in the short term, I am planning on writing some supplementary gifts and a material for a game by Snow called Songbirds, which is what if Dungeon Crawler by way of Disco Elysium, which is
I
amazing.
love that.
Yes, and it was
so
like,
cool.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's so good. Like, I kept flipping the pages and going, oh my God, this is so good. I think you should buy the game. I will be releasing stuff for it eventually. I've also been noodling with other ideas, solo and duo games. I think the two that I'm most interested in turning into big games eventually is one, a mecha game in the style of do you know Jubo's wish granting engine by Jenna Moran?
Yes, I have heard of it. I'm not
Yes.
super familiar, but I have heard of it.
So mechanically, the way that kind of works is you have characters, and the mechanic is they undergo different kind of quests and storylines that you devote time and actions to in order to fulfill. I'm not describing it very well. Chubos is such unusual role playing. It's kind of like quest markers and tick boxes, but in a role play setting. It's so
Cool.
it's so cool. It's so unusual. Like
Yeah.
I love it. I've run it a couple of times as a one shot, and it's so different from anything I've run. So I wanted to take that framework and then bolt it onto action mecha gameplay, but streamlined and
love that.
simplified
Yeah.
in the style of 100 Line Academy, which is one of my favorite RPGs of this year. We come back to the progress journal. I think I had that from really early in the year, and I've been ruminating on it, and I was like, I want to do something with this where rather than you hack and slashing at RPG enemies and watching their hit bar go down, it is more mob/tower defense, where the game throws giant crowds of monsters at you, and your moves have a very specific set of squares that they hit, and effects and after effects. And it's more about how well can you time and how well can you position the way that your moves cut through the enemies before they hit your tower. And I've always been curious and fascinated with the idea of how can we do a real tower defense in a tabletop RPG way. And I was playing that game, and after a couple of months, now that we come to the end of the year, in my head I'm like, I think you could do tower defense in a tabletop RPG by doing it this way, where you have the grid, and it's more about like how do you carefully position your moves as they affect the grid.
I love that. That's so cool. Yeah. I would say that's the one that I'm just like, that seems hard to do theater of the mind. Like you really want some sort of physical map, and maybe, I don't know, if we want to go all out, like custom minis, cool little shit. But like that, what a neat idea. Those kind of games are really interesting to me, and occasionally annoyingly heavily marketed to me, but what can we do?
Algorithm.
That's the world we live in. Yeah, right? Before I get to our most important question, I want to ask, I guess, maybe the other slightly politicized question that I had for you, which is, you have a unique perspective to your writing, especially compared to what most players in the U.S. at least are familiar with. And the question of like, how does your perspective inform your writing or design process is an insanely large one.
Oh my.
And so I think like more closely, I'm curious if you feel like there are genres or themes or ideas that you feel more drawn to explore because the majority, the mainstream, if you will, of the games that are put out don't explore that, don't examine those kind of things.
Right. I think I'm really privileged to be in a space with RPGC, where it's not just me, but there's a whole host of Filipino creators and Southeast Asian creators who, how do I put this? They are very strongly embedded in a kind of a cultural heritage, because I am from the Philippines. I am a Filipino, Chinese Filipino creator, but I'm not going to put on airs and say that I am an authority when it comes to our culture, our cultural practices, our heritage. I think there's quite a bit, unfortunately, that's been lost historically. Thank you, colonialism. But
Gotta love it.
gotta love it. Yay. I think where I have examined that in my work, other authors, I think, and I love it where they go to pre-colonial or like non-colonial examinations of Southeast Asian culture and put that into their work, because they've really put in the time and the effort and the research to incorporate those things into their games and their supplements very well. I know I'm not that person. I tend to put in more, I think to do, well, I like a little bit more recent and modern aspects of Philippine history and Philippine debate when it shows up in my games. Like the examinations of faith and religion, because Roman Catholicism obviously came to us because of colonialism. So
Right.
I tend to examine that, and in particular, colonialism as part of the institution versus what is faith. Because the way that Roman Catholicism looks here would probably look like absolute madness to a Christian in the United States. Like the way it's practiced, particularly in the province, and the way that we parade our saints through the streets. And like literally you have idols of Mary carrying Jesus being paraded on like semi-palanquins through the streets on festival days and festival weeks. And there's like a massive crush of people reaching up and trying to touch the statue of Mary and Jesus. And you wouldn't see that in the States. Or I haven't put this into any of my work yet. I really should. But when I was growing up, there was a specific riverboating festival dedicated to Santa Ana, where because it was a feast day, we do the insane thing of people would go down the river in boats with food in their boats, like, and throw it at houses and people for them to catch on the shore.
That sounds like my kind of festival, honestly.
Isn't
like
that
that's
amazing?
pretty cool. Yeah.
You wouldn't see that. I don't think you would see that in the West. I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Not to the best of my knowledge, at least in like the US and Europe. There's some similarities that I would say between kind of Central and South America and their relationship to Christianity and what you're telling me about kind of the Filipino relationship. I think some crossover or some similarity at least. So maybe there's certainly any number of things I don't know about festivals in Central and South America.
But I think that's kind of emblematic of the way that we practice Roman Catholicism from a Filipino point of view. But kind of coming back to the game design, it's things like this where I'm aware culturally that there is a difference between us and like the US and Europe. I like to explore these spaces, not the historical space, but the more modern space in the way I've seen it practiced, the ways I've seen these differences play out. In an upcoming supplement, that's another thing to watch out for. So Binary Star Games they had a really wonderful Kickstarter for celestial bodies. I am one of the guest writers on a supplementary zine for that, which should be delivered next year?
Okay.
And one of the things I was asked to do was create factions for it, and kind of like a what if scenario using the main celestial bodies mechanics. And it is very modern Philippines. It might not seem like that to the US and to the Western audience, but
Sure.
people from Metro Manila, when I've described it to them, they're like, oh, this is such a Manila thing. This is because our three factions are a transport cooperative of effectively far future jeepney drivers. The jeepney, if you're not familiar with the jeepney, and if our audience is not familiar, when the Americans came to the Philippines in the wake of World War II, and kind of in the end of World War II, they left their army jeeps behind. And being thrifty people, we repurposed it into a kind of informal public transport. So there are a lot of jeepneys on the road. There's been a lot of debate about the jeepney. And like, no, we can't get rid of it because it's cultural heritage. What about the jeepney drivers? I think there are a lot of things that could be addressed in terms of how we run transport in this country, but that is a completely other podcast.
That's where we talk about urban planning and public transportation.
Hey!
Start that one.
Yeah. So there's the transport cooperative. I actually come from an urban planning and transport background. That's my day job. That's also why I felt qualified to write about it.
Yeah. That also, as an aside, that sounds fascinating. That is one of the things that I often find very interesting and curious, especially the difference in public transportation and how, cities that are old handle it versus, I think about cities in the US from like our oldest cities are maybe a couple hundred years old, maybe, versus Rome versus, I would say Manila, as far as I'm aware, is like has just been in existence significantly longer that and grown and expanded and technology has changed. And how do you keep adjusting and planning and essentially rebuilding a city into the modern era?
Oh, and for Manila's case, the answer is badly. Again,
Sure.
That's why that's another podcast.
Yeah.
The short answer is badly. Like literally, when I was in school, and I was young, and I asked one of my professors, I'm from the Philippines. I live in Metro Manila, and obviously, it's not a great situation there. But you, as an expert in urban planning, do you have any advice for me? Because I plan to go back. Like, what would you do differently in Manila? And he just kind of looks at me with this, that the super jaded look of academics who are also working full time in their field.
Yep.
And that tired look. And he's like, honestly,
oh no,
raise it to the ground and rebuild. It would be cheaper and faster. And I was like, oh. Thank you.
Horrifying.
Horrifying.
Wow. I mean, not wrong from a purely pragmatic and efficiency-oriented point of view, I suppose, but wow.
He was so real with me, and I was like, oh no. And as I've grown older, I'm like, I understand. I understand why he said that now.
Sure. Same. It just in my own thought experience, I'm like, wow, a lot of these cities, like, I'm in the Bay Area. Our public transit is a fucking joke and is terrible. I'm like, we'd really need to redesign the whole system from scratch and start from a completely blank slate to make this work. And that is no longer feasible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, I'm so sorry. Coming back to from the
all good.
So one faction is a transport co-op. One faction is a puritanical space church, And one faction is essentially a family-owned mega corporation.
Okay.
And these are concepts that I think in isolation can work in any table, in any setting. The transport co-op, I think, is the most offbeat. But if you ask someone from the Philippines and you put all three of them in the same space together, like that's Metro Manila. Because obviously you have your transport co-ops and you have these drivers kind of fighting for space. And obviously you have the Roman Catholic Church, and it is still a major influence. And the mega corporations owned by the families, we have some proper like Wayland Yutani style megacorps owned by families. Yeah. Like
so the zombie apocalypse may come from the Philippines. It's equally likely to come from the US, let's be fair, but or anywhere, but Jesus. Wow. I mean, I appreciate I'm learning so many new things.
Yeah. It's just so interesting because it's like I guess in the US, it's a bit out of vogue now for companies to be named after people names. You don't really see that anymore. But like our megacorps, they're still named after the families. They still do that here. Like you have the Aboitas High, and everywhere you see it's the Aboitas Corporation, Aboitas Land, Aboitas Power, and then you have the Ayalas, and the Ayalas also have Ayala Land, Ayala Tower. These things where you're like, it seems like the stuff out of cyberpunk fiction.
Sure.
But when I pass, when I'm on the street or like when I'm going to work, you can see all of these. And in the same notion, this sounds ridiculous, but we have billboards, and some of the billboards will say things like, God is with you, or God wants you to listen to him. And they use that as filler for billboards that don't have ad space that's been bought yet. So in between ads for fried chicken and casinos, you will get that occasional, and it's black with white text. It's literally black that with white text. It's like, have you prayed today? Like, I live in hell. What is this?
I mean, this is late stage capitalism, baby. Woo! We're doing great over here.
So,
that's it. Yeah. I mean, what an environment to have inform your writing and your perspective on the things that are important and what you would communicate in games and fiction. Wow. I got nothing. That is, there's some similar aspects that I have confronted and familiar with in the US, but nothing, not quite so in your face for the most part until the last 18 months or so.
yeah.
Gotta love that. On that note, I guess, I think it is time for me to ask the most important questions. Kyle, what are your favorite class and subclass or multiples thereof? And now that we're at this point, I'm going to say, like, we have expanded. I've heard things that are way beyond the realm of D&D where this podcast started a while ago. So open to archetypes and things from other systems. But what, I think, maybe it's as a player, what archetypes, what character classes are you most unreasonably in love with or passionate about?
Let's see. I will probably bring it back to D&D right now because I feel like I've run wild in the rest of this. I've run wild for the rest of this podcast. Thank you so much.
That is the point. That is, I like learning about what people are most excited about, and I'm learning a lot of it is not D&D based, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, but that being said, and this shouldn't come as a shock. I love playing a paladin with Oath of Devotion. It's a the running theme in my games and in the way I play, and I think it's something that I tend to incorporate in my characters in other games. But not always. It's just something that crops up when religion crops up in the game. Is by what measure do we understand our faith? What is faith in the face of the atrocities and injustices of the world? And I think, like, paladins with Oath of Devotion, not clerics. I've never played a cleric, weirdly enough. But I think because there's something about the paladin who takes that oath that swears themselves to upholding the ideals of their god, and that speaks to me a lot in terms of to what extent will you hold fast to the ideals of your religion, and to what extent are you willing to bend that, and at what point is it too far? Like, I will talk about my experience playing D&D, and also about my experience playing Over Under, which was a wild experience. So I think the last time I played an extended D&D campaign was as a paladin, and it's so interesting being in a group with different types of role players. It's so interesting because some people are really into role play, like me, and some people just want to hit things and do numbers. And
hey, we love a good shiny math rock. Happy
we
little
do.
clack
We love a good,
clacks.
and then kind of when those butt heads, it's funny because I think at the point I was really like, I don't know if my character would engage in this combat with this person because, we should ask questions. If this, and then I think we got into an issue over fairy, me and the party, because I was playing two character and was like, I've taken an oath to help others. My God would want me to assist, right? Because the fairy is like, help, I'm in distress, something's wrong. And then my friend, the shiny math rock, was like, oh, that's a pixie. Pixies are always chaotic evil, or like at best chaotic neutral aligned. We should not help them. This is bad. And I'm like, are you really quoting the monster manual at me? Are you really doing this? And he's like, I'm telling you it's a bad idea. And I was like, no, but I've sworn this. I've said I would do this. Obviously, it was a trap. Like, it did lead to a bad situation. And I told you so a lot. To which my response was, I don't care. This is what my character believed was right and still believes is the right thing to do. Yeah. And I thought that would have been an interesting place to role play that out if we had both been role players. Unfortunately, it led to an out of character disagreement because we'd had two different intentions coming in.
Yeah. I mean, if I may, that also sounds like that player is like doing a little bit of metagaming of the player, know that these creatures are usually going to be fucking with us. It's possible also that character would have been like, no, I hate the Fae, we should do this. But I would commend you for really following through on the good version of it's what my character would do. You know, not the shitty version of like, no, I'm going to kill everything and antagonize the party because it's what my character would do. But the really like, I have sworn this oath to help people, and this is a creature that says it needs help.
Yeah.
and potentially leaning into whatever mental stats you might have had for that character. If they're like, no, they might not have actually questioned. It's just, I swore to help. They need help. A plus B equals I help.
I think it was like if I remember, my intelligence and wisdom were not high, and the charisma was very high because that's what you use to cast your paladin spells.
Totally.
So I was like, no, this is fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. That is a good way of, it's what my character would do. I would not question this thing. I would follow the oath that I swore. End of story. Or not end of story, hopefully start of beginning, spark of really nice roleplay with someone who disagrees.
Yeah.
We would hope.
We would hope for sure. But it's definitely something thematically I've really been drawn to. I think the other class I'd like to play, or well, the other class I would like to play, I've never gotten the chance to, is I believe it's a Circle of Dreams. I need to look up because it's the Dream Druid. I've never had the chance because when I was playing D&D more regularly, I was told this is not a good choice mechanically, and I was like, but it's so. I want to be the Dream Druid. It seems fun. My lesson from that was I need to find more tables that want to play the way I do, rather than trying to force myself to fit into tables where my style of play is kind of clashing a lot with other people. So that was kind of the lesson I learned growing up. Find role players that are more on your length and more at your level, rather, and your understanding of what you want to achieve from the game.
Yeah. And that's not always easy. I think both, my home games with people that are my friends that I love playing with, we still don't always align in the things we want to do. I just dropped a Planescape game where I'm like, damn, it's hard. It's functionally hard to role play because the core premise of that game is all of your characters don't have their memory until the final moments of the game. You wake up on a slab in the city of Sigil in the mortuary and you have been dead and you don't know what's going on. I'm like, well, okay, so structurally that's difficult. But, there was a couple players that were wanted to essentially speed run the whole campaign and get to the next beat and get to the next beat and fight the next thing and accomplish shave the next yak to get to the next whatever. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. Also, I would be happy to slow down and talk about what we're doing a little bit in character, but we're not all on the same page here, so okay. And again, I've had wonderful online games and games where I did not know the table walking in, and still it's even when a game was advertised or pitched as role play heavy, and that being the main focus, we have a dice goblin who just wants to hit things really hard with the most dice possible. And is less interested in other things.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Well, I hope you find all the wonderful role players for your tables in the future that you can possibly find.
You too. I think as I've gotten older, it has become better. I think possibly controversial opinion, but I think when you're in college and role playing, it is a great experience, but you are not emotionally equipped for the conflicts that will happen at your table. I promise you. College kids running any game, have fun, stay safe, except you're gonna fight at some point because you don't have necessarily. Some people are really mature at that age. A lot of us are not, because you're gonna get really attached to your characters, and you're probably going to squabble with your friends at some point. It just happens. I'm sorry.
It does. I have small amounts of hope, just as I'm interacting with the youth a little more, running some games for teens. I have some small hope that in at least pockets of the world, communication skills and empathizing and like some of the things that I know I did not learn and absorb until well into my adult years are being taught. I see my teenagers actually willing to talk to each other and have difficult in and out of character conversations in a more respectful way than I would have managed at their age. That may be Bay Area bias for sure, but like,
but that's so
I have
good.
some hope. Yeah,
That's so good to see, because I know at my age we were kind of resolving things by yelling. So,
yeah,
because we're like 19, 20, and we're like, no, blah, blah, blah. And now that I'm 30, I'm like, oh my God, we could have had a civil conversation. We didn't have to yell.
you know, we and again, I like to think we all learn a little bit as we get older, and that whole table might have had a very different experience if you all got back together and played even the same games now. Yeah. Well, Kyle, what a genuine pleasure and delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us at the very wee hours of the morning that it must be.
No, I've had so much fun. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Like I said, we're going to have all many links and all the things in the show notes. But where can people find you on the internet if they would like to find you?
Oh yeah, sure. So I am on Blue Sky. I believe my name there is Percy Propa. It should be my name, but I got really attached to this. That's the character from a video game. So it's too late now.
Fair. It is. Yeah. Well, and it's like, one of the weird things about any social media is like, well, there's searching for the name, and then there's searching for the screen name, the avatar, the what's it, and they are sometimes the same thing and sometimes not. And listeners, if you can find The Roll Report on your various social media platforms at The Roll Report Cast, where you'll find all sorts of stuff. And if you really like what we're doing and would like to continue to support it, you can find us at patreon.com/The Roll Report for as little as $1 a month of your wonderful, wonderful support. I still never have an exit, so I'm just going to say, again, thank you. I have had such a wonderful bunch of time with you, and I deeply appreciate you giving us some of your time. And congratulations on the many things that you've already achieved and put out into the world. And I am so excited for the next group of them. And we could do like a follow-up when the Kickstarter goes live in July. Talk a little bit more about those projects.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. It's honestly, I've had so much fun. I am wide awake now. Like, I was kind of sleepy coming in. I am so awake now.
I'm sorry / you're welcome.
No, it's great. Thank you so much.
Of course. Until next time, listeners, go roll some more dice. That doesn't interrupt your role play. If you can.